Tonight, as PDS consults its lawyers over government's decision to terminate its concession arrangement with ECG, we'll hear from former President Mahama, who is taking on the president for pushing through what he calls a self-serving decision.
As someone who took over from Professor J.E.A. Mills of blessed memory and supervised the Ghana Compact II negotiations with the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the U.S. government, I am deeply disappointed in Nana Akufo-Addo's administration for this.
We'll hear from the former president. We have details as we explore what next after the PDS deal.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Gassem, the nation builder. And Tate Furniture, designed for life. ECG is tonight back in full control of the power distribution network. But Joe News is learning that that PDS, which today saw its concession contract formally terminated, may not go down without a fight. Sources close to PDS say some of its Ghanaian shareholders are tonight consulting with their lawyers, exploring a possible legal suit against the ECG and government. The multi-million-dollar deal was terminated despite clear opposition from the American government, which is providing funds through the Millennium Compact arrangement to improve Ghana's power sector. Well, in the last couple of hours, the former president, John Mahama, has waded into the controversy, branding the decision self-serving and an example of state capture. The minority in parliament has also described the decision as criminal, demanding that those who supervised the botched deal should be prosecuted for causing financial loss to the state. We'll hear from the opposition shortly. But first, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah has dismissed suggestions that there has been criminal conduct in the matter. He spoke at the news conference today to formally announce the government's decision to terminate the deal.
I disagree with the premise of your question that some people didn't do their job right. Indeed, NIDA has been part of this exercise to inquire into the validity of the documents that were prima facie, and they have played their role in this inquiry and this exercise. Indeed, you notice from the U.S. statement that they still have jobs that they are doing, reference to the 308, that is still ongoing. And we have the considered view that they have played their part in uncovering what has gone on and in working towards the resolutions as we have them now. We are not of the view that they have failed in uncovering what they were supposed to uncover. Indeed, it is part of this exercise to uncover that has brought this to the fore, which has resulted in this kind of action. And then there was a first question on who bears the brunt for this crime. The government of Ghana is advised and believes same to be true, that the concessionaire, properly selected, did not meet a material and fundamental terms as at the time of transfer, and for that reason is not able to continue with the concessionaire and therefore is terminating. You are choosing to describe it as a crime. I'm sure you're familiar with the criminal code and the various crimes that are listed there. So I'm not sure that at this stage we consider it, or we have reason to consider their failure, or what we advised and believe to be their failure to have met the term as a crime, and then it's consequential issues that you are having. That we disagree with your description, and therefore your invitation to, analyze criminality in that space.
So, what happens to the PDS workers? They used to be ECG workers. When PDS came on board, they became PDS workers. What happens to them now in the wake of government decision to terminate? Listen to the Deputy Energy Minister Orekwedu.
ECG, when all these things have been effected, will assume full control of the assets, which hitherto has been in possession of PDS. One may ask, what happens to the workers of ECG and PDS? The assertion is that once there was no transfer, if the demand guarantee was not in place as of March, 1st of March, then it necessarily means that there was no transfer of workers. So the workers still remain the workers of ECG, and then ECG will be meeting the unions and the general workers' body today to explain to them exactly what has happened.
Well, today, former President John Mahama, and he had a hand in continuing with this concession arrangement, which a part of it was executed under his predecessor, John Mills, and going way back to John Kufuor. He says that the current state of affairs and the decision taken by government is a self-serving one and just comes in the midst of what he calls shady dealings backed by Jubilee House.
As someone who took over from Professor J.E.A. Mills of blessed memory and supervised the Ghana Compact II negotiations with the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the U.S. government, I am deeply disappointed in Nana Akufo-Addo's administration for his handling of the compact. Fellow Ghanaians, we are all deeply disappointed because of the self-serving decisions that we're taking. The deliberate acts perpetuated with the crude support of the Flagstaff House in the ECG concessionaire agreement that has led us to where we are today. This was absolutely needless and could have been avoided. I have just noted a decision by the NCC to withdraw $190 million of the funding amount. It's a sad day for us. This money was meant to improve the efficiency of our electricity utility corporation. Let me emphasize that these shady happenings were absolutely avoidable if the right decisions were taken with the future development of Ghana in mind, and not parochial decisions that reflect the sad and worsening situation of state capture that we're increasingly experiencing under the Akufo-Addo administration. Ghanaians are looking up to the NDC to reignite the hope that was kindled in our hearts in 1992 with the return to constitutional democracy. This must be a manifesto that ignites hope in Ghanaians. It must be a manifesto that incorporates the concerns of Ghanaians, and it must be a manifesto that restores the confidence of our people in the leadership. Together, we win 2020.
On the line with me now is Information Minister Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Later, we'll also speak to Mr. Alex Mode, who is the former Chief Executive of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, as well as the civil society leadership, who had worked with the on this compact for a while as well, Dr. Steve Mattel. But let me start with Mr. Oppong Nkrumah. Mr. Oppong Nkrumah, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Excellent.
The former president says this decision, he uses the words self-serving. Is it?
I don't know if he provided evidence of how this decision is self-serving. I don't know if he did that. Did he?
No, the sound plate is what we have, yes.
I also heard him use words like evidence of state capture. Then he talked about shady decisions, and he talked about parochial decisions. But in all of his commentary, he never provided any linkage to any specific matter. Evans, the mere mouthing of words or allegations, as we've said over and over again, will not make them true. And this is not the first of such anecdotes or descriptives that the NDC or its flag bearers seek to use in their quest for their parochial political interest. If you want the definition of self-serving decisions, shady decisions, parochial decisions, state capture, it's when the sitting president's brother's company is given 60 to 70% of the nation's bauxite reserves, and he doesn't find anything wrong with that. But when you have a sitting president who says that he has examined the evidence out of the inquiry and the advice, which is clear on its face, that the concessionaire failed to meet a term, and therefore we seek to terminate and to restore the assets to ECG and to move in accordance with those lines. You cannot call that self-serving, shady, parochial, and evidence of state capture. We reject those descriptions ab initio.
The NDC have consistently cited the real genesis of the problem, linked it to the finance minister's letter seeking to restructure the concession arrangement, where many of the original shareholders' shares will be diluted and others will be brought in. They pointed out to say that was the finance minister
Now, if you read that
arrogating
letter
itself
to
to
your
itself
listeners,
power they didn't
if
have.
you read the letter to your listeners, that letter in its words and in its spirit is quite clear on its face that there's the need to protect the 51% Ghanaian ownership. And that is why the finance minister says in that letter that the advice is for the Ghanaian members of that 51% to ring fence theirs through an SPV so that you do not have anybody in the Ghanaian bracket going to sell out to somebody in the 49 bracket, which would defeat the purpose of the 5149 that was structured. The finance minister's letter is not evidence that PDS is a consortium that was put together by government or by the president. That, again, is not a matter that can be sustained on the face of the evidence. I think we've been quite clear with this matter that this is a matter that has been treated on the face of the evidence. We may disagree, as I'm sure parties often disagree, but it would not give grounds for anybody to impugn some of the parochial imputations that the NDC seeks to do.
You maintained today at the press conference that government is still committed to a private partnership in this particular deal going forward, PSP. What does that mean if you put in the context of what happens next?
My brief is that the government of Ghana, even under the Akufo-Addo administration, is committed to private sector participation to assist the ECG turn its operations around and become more efficient. The initial path, as was agreed to even by the Mahama administration, was to go through a PSP arrangement in a concession under this compact. It is our understanding currently, following our engagements with our American colleagues, that that 190 outstanding is no longer on the table because we have terminated the concession agreement. The government remains interested in looking for a private sector partner to assist ECG to turn around and to become more efficient. And as we mentioned today, the minister responsible for finance will be outlining how best we can achieve that moving forward.
Is Meralco the lead foreign partner and Anegia, are they still in the picture?
My understanding is that whatever formula or method or approach that will best provide an avenue to get a PSP participant to work with ECG, which is eventually agreed on by the government of Ghana, is what will be announced to us subsequently by the minister responsible for finance. I do not have the ability to look into the crystal ball and speak ahead of what may be coming.
Because and it has been suggested sometime by the minority that the government's intention is to keep the foreign partners in the deal, but then go ahead to open this up, as we've read in even the MCC's letter, to get institutional participation that would deal specifically only with the Ghanaian ownership as it has exists. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and it was the same minority that said that the problem was because a condition precedent had been made a condition subsequent. The same minority is the one that alleged that Franklin Templeton was literally an individual. I think we can discount those ones and let the finance minister do the presentation which we have indicated today that he will do to the country, and then we can interrogate it.
I asked that question about Meralco and the intention to bring in, the state institutional representation and deal with the local, because if there is a termination, the assumption is that it affects all the parties in this, the 30%, the 19%, everybody. But if there is an intention to keep Meralco, how do you explain that when the deal itself has been terminated and is dead or did not even exist as of 1st March?
As I mentioned, I do not have the ability to look into the crystal ball and determine an intention to keep Meralco. As I have suggested, we will need to wait for the finance minister to outline to us how they intend to go around that route, and then we can interrogate whatever options there may be on the table at that point.
So has this decision been formally communicated to the shareholders in this matter? Yesterday, Meralco on the stock exchange was clear they have no formal communication. Has that been done now?
My understanding is that the decision will be communicated or has been communicated to the corporate entity PDS. I think the company, through its own internal structures, will have to, as is with all other companies, then engage its principal actors, its directors. If they have to engage their shareholders, they will do so in accordance with due process.
MEDA did its own internal investigations, and one of the things they established is the fact that PDS used, let's put it simply, customer funds. I mean, funds that I pay for my electricity to settle some of the loans that they pay to finance the guarantee. Is this something that government is going to look into post termination?
That is my understanding as well.
So government is going to probe this?
That is my understanding.
With the intention of what? Retrieving the monies?
The probe, if it does establish that this indeed has transpired, I'm sure will come with its own consequences. But I'm not able to speak on something that has not occurred or I haven't been briefed on. But my understanding is that government intends to examine those parts of the FTI report, which are also, in my understanding, corroborated by CID reports that parts of the premium may have been funded by receivables from ECG.
You mentioned CID. CID has already done its own probe into this?
That's my understanding. The CID has been part of the Government of Ghana inquiry. It is their work in the GOG inquiry, which corroborates what you are referring to in the FTI report. Once
you mention CID, I need to ask the question about criminality here. I mean, because you answer that question categorically today at the press conference that you disagree when people suggest and build the basis of criminality. But if CID is involved, isn't that an indication the government itself is thinking along the lines, or there might have been a possible criminality involved in this whole deal?
Because the information that the insurers are initially provided give hints in that direction. And so when the government inquiry team was put together, the CID was included. I think the Interior Ministry was also included in that exercise. Today's question at the press briefing was specific, essentially suggesting that a failure to meet a term of a contract was akin to criminal conduct, and whether the persons who had failed to meet or who had, in the question of the reporter from Bloomberg, committed that crime were going to be sanctioned. And I think our response was that we disagreed with that view that a failure to meet a term was analogous to criminal conduct. And we therefore did not take up that invitation to enter a criminal analysis at that stage. We also mentioned that, however, if there are any criminal matters that are uncovered, the laws of this country are quite clear on how those ones should be handled, and they'll be handled accordingly.
Talking about the laws of Ghana, is government absolutely certain that the termination was done according to the terms of the contract?
I don't have reason to doubt otherwise.
I asked that because tonight, as we've checked, the PDS folks are consulting with your lawyers. No decision has been taken yet, but the understanding we get is that they're exploring our options. We may include a possible legal option. I'm just asking on wherein the dispute resolution measures included in the contract approved by Parliament that should have preceded a termination. Do I still have Mr. Ponkruma on the line? I think I lost him. Hello, Mr. Ponkruma. I think I lost him. We'll try and reconnect just to get a sense of that, because from what we're hearing from our sources close to PDS tonight who are consulting with your lawyers. Let's bring in Mr. Alex Mould, who has issued a statement tonight on these matters. He is a former chief executive of the Ghana Petroleum Authority. Mr. Mould, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You have issued a statement. You claim that Ghana stand to lose far more than $190 million that we heard about the Americans were absolutely categorical on. You put the figure at 10 billion cedis. Explain.
Yes, it's quite simple. The compact.
I'm sorry, I'm having a challenge with your line. I will reestablish connection with you right now, and let's see if we can have a better connection to you on this. But he makes that point in his statement about what we stand to lose. The Americans have been clear on this already. They've told us we've lost already off the table 190 million, and we're also going to lose out of the regional compact that we've already begun conversations on. Mr. Alex Mould is back on the line. Hopefully we can hear him now. Mr. Mould?
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear clearly. You were explaining how you came by the 10 billion CD number.
Yeah, it's about $1.7 billion actually, because my understanding is that they're going to fund 190 million directly to ECG as per the compact. We have another $400 million that they're going to spend on the regional compact, which is going to be established in Ghana. Then we also have $500 million government support that the U.S. government was going to give to Ghana, and all of this is in jeopardy. The last thing we have is the concessionaire themselves are supposed to spend about $500 or $580 million over a 5-year period. So all of that is what we are losing as a country. This will not be coming in again. The $500 million government support is very important for the budget, so we can see repercussions.
Let's break that down a bit more. Let's start with what the concessionaires were going to invest in the power distribution network. Government says you're so committed to that arrangement, they just won't work with the current players as they're currently structured. What that means is whoever government gets will still have to invest that money, and so that can be lost.
Well, if they invest that money, I mean, it depends on how much is going to be invested from the compact itself, because the compact is going to invest money into ECG to fix certain things. That means that it will have to be more than 580 million that will be investing, and I don't see, how that will work out. The other reason why the concessionaire is in this is because of the U.S. government, because the U.S. government would put.
But the U.S. government is still in this.
Some sort of pressure. No, the U.S. government is not in on the ECG concessionaire. They are in on the compact, and the compact has about 6 pillars. One of them is ECG, and they're not going to invest any more in ECG.
Is it your point that will discourage investors from taking up the deal if it's opened up?
Well, let's understand exactly what the government has done. In some circles, easily be looked at even as expropriation. You have a contract. You're not abiding by the sanctity of contracts. There will be ripple effects in the international markets. For Ghana, we may even see our credit rating go down because of defaults, perceived defaults. Other countries may not be willing to support us on our budgets. All of these things, we need to be very careful. And the last one is, did we actually terminate the PDS in the right manner? And that could bring judgment debt on us. And we could even have this taken an international arbitration if we're not careful.
And you raised those points, but as just been interrogating that same point with the Kojo Pon Nkrumah on the issue about the possible legal suits and all. But if you look at where we are tonight with the issues surrounding PDS, you're surely not saying that when multiple state agencies, CID, a combined government delegation and team that went to Qatar and toured the world and came back with the same conclusion that we do not have a valid insurance guarantee, the possibility, from our Coutts point, that there may be fraud involved in this, that in all that we should have still kept the deal as it was structured.
How it's looked at, was PDS instrumental in the fraud, or was the fraud caused by a third party? Maybe PDS actually were not involved. So it depends on exactly how the case is looked at, and I have a feeling that the PDS lawyers are going to take a...
Hello, Mr. Mold. I think we lost him too. But that's the former chief executive of the Ghana Petroleum Authority tonight. So a few things that are important in terms of way forward on this. As the information minister was articulating just before his line dropped, the finance minister, we are waiting the finance minister to spell out in specific terms what will happen going forward. But this is what we know from our sources. One, that government has already begun talks with a lot of the companies. The number we are giving is 6. 6 of the companies that were pre-qualified in the original bidding process for the concession arrangement. The government is in talks with them to bring one on board for the next phase of the project. Two, that this will not affect the power supply system, as ECG is tonight fully in control of the sector as of tonight. And also, there is a government also believes that we can do without the 190 million that Americans have said is currently off the table. Kojo Ponkrama also confirmed today that the compact, the regional compact, which is also almost $500 million, may also be something that we will lose. Government says, well, we are willing to take that hit to do the right thing. Let me wrap up with Mr. Alex Modo, who's back on the line. Mr. Modo, you were making a point before the line dropped there about, the point about how this whole deal, now what we know about it, might influence or might cost us. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're making a point before the line dropped.
Yeah, I was making a point that it could cost us, and it's going to cost us. Not it could cost us. It's definitely going to cost us because there are going to be international ramifications because we are actually cancelling an international contract. And the U.S. government is involved. The U.S. government definitely has its own MCC has certain things that they have to do to make sure that they can continue doing these kind of compacts all over the world. If this is abrogated, it's a slap in the face to the U.S. government by Ghana. They have given us a lifeline. They've asked us to do a few things. One of the things they asked us to do was do not cancel the PDS contract, but change the shareholdings, and because that is the big problem. The big problem is the shareholdings. You can fix the guarantee, which is also fixable. The local shareholding is a problem, and that fictitious Angolan company in Asia, SA, which was not part of the original bid, should be changed.
Okay.
I think the MCC has given Ghana a little wedge in the door before they shut the door to get it done. I think the Nana Akufo-Addo administration needs to look at this carefully. They need to go back. They need to eat humble pie, and they need to fix it because we all know the reason why this thing has gone belly up. And the simple reason is because you have a 51% shareholding of people who are not qualified or capable to be in the.
But isn't that why you terminate? You must terminate once you discover that indeed is the case.
And that's not the reason why they should terminate. They approve them.
That's a part of the reason.
You can't prove something based on what they presented to you and you terminate it. They are terminated because of the guarantee. Yeah. The guarantee can be fixed. It's not a problem.
Thank you very much. That's Alex Moe there. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We haven't done with this. There have been reactions coming in from all quarters. Stay with us on this. This is Top Story.